I think we're going to get started here so that we can offer enough time for all of the participants of the panel discussions. My name's Timothy Standring. I'm the Gates Foundation Curator of Painting and Sculpture. I've been here for about 26 years. It's a risk-taking institution. They still keep me employed. I thought I'd do a little bit of stand-up comedy here and explain the rules. First of all, thanks to all of you. Isn't this wonderful? Big round of applause for ourselves. We owe a great deal to Lynn Grigsby as well as Denny O'Brien and the programming committee and the welcoming committee, and for the support group. They're part of the support group of FOPA, Friends of Painting and Sculpture. So if you are not a member, you will not be able to leave until you become a member. And also, there is a program today. And keep in mind that today's event is a beginning. I would love to see this perhaps as an annual or maybe every other year, but it's to initiate a dialogue and a discussion in the community. And it's not intended to exclude anybody. It's intended to be inclusive of all. And what's interesting in our community is that we do have a thriving group of people working in 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 or a dozen different modes of making works of art, and everything's valid. And I think I'll just give one little observation. I think in the past decade, what we've found is that there's been a willingness to accept all these different modes of operation, and I think that that's really quite wonderful. The other thing that I'm happy about is we've got so many students here. Everybody come on in and sit down. Just push people out of the way. There are empty seats here, David up in front. But students here, different constituencies. So your big pledge before you all leave is you're going to tell 10 people about this event. And that's really important because people have spent time organizing it, and there's a lot of really good, wonderful information. And what we all want to leave with is, what are we doing well? What are we doing poorly? What is out of our control, as Willie had mentioned to me earlier this morning. So we've got a thriving community. How can we make it even more thriving? And I'm just thrilled with all our panelists that are going to be up here. Here's the rules of the game. Each panelist will have roughly about 10 minutes to give a small report, and then we'll open up the floor to discussion in which we can receive questions from the floor. We can make observations about each other's remarks, and out of this, I think we'll have a really wonderful synergy. Am I missing anything? No? The hat is glued on, by the way. I have over 50 of them. My wife shaves it off every night. So anyway, without further ado, let's get the first panel up here. Keely Boyd, Michael Paglia, Todd Silver. I'll just open up the floor with. My role is supposed to be the court jester and moderator. So, Todd, if you move down just a little bit, that will give me room. I think, Michael, why don't you begin by explaining a little bit about the Denver art scene over the past decade or so. And we do have a clicker pointer here, a high-tech one.
Okay. I'm not doing a multimedia presentation, but I just wanted to make some remarks. Can I do it from over
perfect.
there?
We can. It's complete. We're learning as we're doing. So whether you want to use the podium, which is fine, and more comfortable, but then afterwards we can sit down and have our panel discussion.
So we're ad-libbing. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. I'll just say that I rewrote my speech last night, or my remarks last night, because I thought I was too hard-edged. Anyway, the topic of this symposium is exploring the Denver art scene. And as the art critic at Westward for the last 22 years, I've been doing just that for all that time. I've had an agenda regarding my column, which has been to boost Denver art, to find the things that I think are worthwhile. I've also believed that a little something from me could mean a great deal to an artist or to a gallery. The Star Wars show doesn't need my help to get people in the door, so I won't write about it. But a lot of compelling shows at the galleries actually do need a leg up, and they need me and others like me to get the word out about them. And I will write about as many of them as I can. Now, I was thinking I probably have averaged, over the years, about 70 reviews a year for 22 years. That's a lot of reviews. But things have been really changing in recent years. And Denver's gotten a national reputation as being a creative center. It's been attracting an army of millennials, and I know some of you are out there, but for the rest of us, millennials are those 20-something kids with weird hairdos and tattoos and discourteous driving habits that have swamped the city. A big element in the rapid growth, I was just kidding, you guys. A big element in the rapid growth of the city has been legal pot, sold in shops and grown in warehouses. And I could say I don't think Westward would still be publishing if pot hadn't been legalized. Not for spiritual reasons, but rather for, the bottom line, all those ads. Another is the high-tech boom. As we look down from our lofty perch here at the top of the art world, which is the Denver Art Museum, I've often thought the Denver Art Museum is, the Broncos, the Rockies, every team all rolled into one for those of us in the art world. It looks like everything's coming up roses from this perspective. The 21st century has seen the construction of the Hamilton Building, which we're sitting in. There's been a new building for MCA Denver, one for History Colorado. The Still Museum has come to town. A new Kirkland is rising just a block from here. And soon, Joe Ponte's Martin Building will be lovingly refurbished. And many other places in the area exist where top-tier exhibits can be seen, like Metro's Center for Visual Art and Redline. And out in the suburbs, the Museum of Outdoor Arts and the Arvada Center. Plus, there's a healthy gallery scene where literally hundreds of professional artists who live in the area exhibit their work in the context of the work of artists from across the country. These galleries would include Robuchon, William Havu, Michael Warren, Walker Fine Art, Space Gallery, and a number of others, notably Goodwin Fine Art and David B. Smith Gallery, and later we'll be hearing from Tina Goodwin and David B. Smith, the directors of those spots. And Kwang Ho is also speaking later, and his Gallery 1261 is the premier realist gallery in Denver. But there is a sadly ironic twist in this happy story of the seemingly abundant visual culture in the Mile High City. Though Denver's never been bigger or more prosperous than it is today, the art scene is beginning to erode away from the bottom. Old Central Denver's been on the front lines of this assault, and this is essentially where the Mile High art world lives. Success is spoiling the art scene because of the soaring rents and a general shortage of workspace and ad hoc exhibition spaces as the result of gentrification and redevelopment. As could be expected, it's hitting the alternative spaces and artist studios the hardest. The directness of the direness of the situation, which is relentlessly getting worse, revealed itself at the beginning of December on a very cold day. That's when the Denver Fire Department evicted the residents of a creative space in Rhino called Rhinoceropolis. This was in the wake of the Ghost Ship fire in Oakland, in which dozens of people were killed in an ad hoc studio performance and exhibition space, located in an old warehouse that wasn't up to fire codes. There are a number of these places still in Denver. The closing of Rhinoceropolis became a big news story around here and also nationally in the art press. The Rhinoceropolis closing overshadowed a more substantial hit to the art scene happening at the very same time, a much more significant art space, one that had actually played a role in the development of the contemporary art world in Denver during the last few decades. Edge Gallery went on an indefinite hiatus. With little notice, the Edge Group left its location at 37th and Navajo after having occupied it for the last quarter century. A huge bump in its rent, which is said to have doubled, caused the Edge members to decide to look for a new place, a difficult quest in the go-go Denver real estate market right now. As of today, no new location for Edge has been announced. The same thing had happened earlier to another cooperative, Ice Cube, which was in a gorgeous historic building on Walnut Street. And like Edge, the group has not yet found a new location. And now Pirate, the city's flagship artist cooperative, has announced it was vacating its location across the street from Edge at the end of March, after occupying that spot for the last 35 years. But also gone is the sweet little Point Gallery on Santa Fe. Then there's Ironton, the incredible studio complex that arguably launched the whole idea of Rhino as an art district. It shut its very good gallery down a year ago, and now the whole place has been sold off. Ordinarily, in a talk like this, I might be expected to have featured some of the city's best artists or top galleries, and that's what I would have done a year ago. But I think Denver's scene is, though still vibrant, very strong, and extremely underrated, with many artists being a part of it. There has to be at least 30 serious venues that are still going strong. But reality emerges regardless of our wishes. And the reality of an exploration of the Denver art world right now is that things are starting to get pretty tough out there. And my closing remarks is that one thing that everyone, or not everyone, but many of the people in this room can do about it is to go out and buy some art this afternoon. Thank you.
Sure, I'll just speak from here.
Okay. Does everybody have an agenda for today? If you don't, raise your hand and we'll get that around. Go ahead, Keely.
Okay. Everyone can hear me? Is this mic on? No? All right. Can we turn the mic on?
Maybe you have to go directly.
There. Hello? Hello, hello. No, I have to go up there?
Yeah.
All right. So much for panel.
We'll just yell when the
Yeah.
panel section starts.
All right, this mic should work. Hi, my name's Keely Boyd. I'm an art historian, a writer, and a museum educator. I lecture at Metropolitan State University of Denver, and I write primarily for Hyperallergic, which is an online publication. And I write for them because early on, when I decided a few years ago to start contributing to the art writing scene in Denver, I wanted to bring national eyes to local artists. And Timothy, when you first brought the panel up here, you said, you know, what are some things you've noticed in the last 10, 20 years in Denver's growth, the positives and negatives? And when I think about that, I think about first the positive is growth, in Denver's growth. I mean, No one here probably loved their commute today and the intensity of traffic over the last couple years in Denver, but growth has been a really wonderful input for our cultural institutions. For example, the CBCA, the Colorado Business Committee for the Arts, put out an economic activity report for 2016, and it showed us that just jobs in Colorado arts community, whether you're a jazz teacher or a curator or an art writer, that arts in Colorado, that those jobs grew at a rate that exceeded total job growth in Denver metro area and general job growth on a national level, over upward of 5% since 2013. So that's amazing. That's a great indicator for our trajectory in the arts community here in Denver. My concerns tag on to that idea of growth, which Michael has already kindly introduced. For example, when population growth happens like we're experiencing in Denver, cost of living go up. Work spaces become really a burden to pay for by artists when wages don't match those costs of living. Also, in that same concept, I'm concerned about our artistic community and its leaders reflecting the changing diversity of Denver. For example, 50% of Denver is female. Are we seeing those numbers reflected in our leaders at museums, art directors, museum gallery owners, the artists that are showing in prominent art galleries? Are we seeing an equal share that reflects those numbers? Over 30% of Denver is Hispanic and Latino. Are we seeing those numbers reflected in the types of art shows being brought to the community and the leaders that are spearheading those kind of programs? The last thing I would think about with growth in Denver's trajectory that I wanted to bring up today, because it's something that everyone in this room can participate in or pressure, is one other thing that the CBCA pointed out was 1/5 of economic impact in Colorado, meaning new money that came in 2016 to our cultural institutions, was in the form of federal grants. 1/5. That means when a new administration floats the idea of eliminating the NEA from federal budget, that is 1/5 of our cash flow being eliminated. Think of it like this. You're an investor in a company and you own a stock, and you're told 1/5 of their cash flow comes from the federal government, and that faucet's being turned off. You'd be really concerned about the health of the company you are invested in. And it's not a death sentence if that goes away for Denver, but it is a serious threat on the current slope that we are enjoying and for our artistic community in Denver. And it's something I'm excited to talk about today. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Todd Seiler, and I wear lots of hats. Literally, I have been making art since I was a little kid, and my criticism and art criticism comes from sort of history and art history. And so I want to spin some of the conversations that we have here, because everything that Keely and Michael said are spot on about the environment and what you're experiencing here. What I would like to show you are a couple examples of things that have moved me over the last 20 years of looking here and being kind of present in this community, and understanding that given all of the constraints on the arts that have, this is an amazing community, I have to tell you, because I'm a New Yorker transplant, and my studio used to be in Long Island City before it was built PS1 and built up and gentrified and so forth, to all those points you're making. And what impresses me about Denver, about this entire region, is the enormous human ingenuity and how people are reinventing themselves, how they are, in fact, I always say, my brain is an R&D lab, always open to wonder. And we have to figure out how we can purpose what we do as artists, as art critics, to help a world community understand what we do. And in fact, this is very much a world community. I don't see it in a very provincial way. I see it very globalized, because many of the artists working in this city do work internationally. They have a presence internationally, and in fact, their concepts, philosophies, ways of looking at the world are redefining the very nature of what art is. For me, so you understand where I'm coming from, art is all representations of thought. It opens the big lens up for lots of ways of taking the arts and applying arts-based ways of looking at the world and strategies for helping others understand their community and world and participation in a very, very large way. So I put this up there, and the word unforgettable to me is one of the impressions as I move through a gallery of space. It could be anywhere. Any of the galleries that they mentioned, any of the spaces that we mentioned, really what impressions leave me as I think, was this unforgettable? Was this something that I'll remember and think and make personally meaningful to me? And one of the things that I want to say, and I'm just going to, in a cursory way, skim through, when I go into an environment and look, I'm not necessarily wanting to understand instantly what the entire environment is about. It's what strikes me, whether it's something that is as deeply crafted and beautiful, not simply sort of this ornamental, looking like a monumental ornamentation from Kim Dickey's work, but I go up and I look and I begin to see elements of it and put it on from the uninitiated. I try to immerse myself. And it's important as you go through these environments, I just want to kind of single out, you begin to see that every aspect of symbol making, of using mediums and all kinds of elements that make great work, are things that as the public begins to understand more about what those processes, what the ways of looking at and building experiences, aesthetic experiences, how they're applied in our lives in a very personally meaningful way, are things that can help others who are not particularly game to understand or even immerse yourself, to go on in a journey in something that is both in the most literal and symbolic way, has that richness that can relate to all of our lives. And I, in the course of looking at and going through, the Clyfford Still, and I look at works on paper, again, to hit a range of sensibility. It's a very pluralistic kind of perspective. I look at these beautiful pieces and as coming from both the conventions and the unconventional because of the range of media that artists are working in now. I think one of the dimensions of all of the contributions that the arts enable us to free our minds and understand and rethink what we thought we knew, we get when we look at different examples like these works on paper, these pastels that are a selection of these works, and how someone is working on an intimate scale, on a monumental scale. So I just want to put that out there and suggest that, in fact, with all the new media, here is Michael Theodore's piece that is called Swarm. And I just want to show you one example of it because I thought it may be appropriate to show something that looks so mechanical, but in fact is so organic and kind of evokes all kinds of moods. And when you watch and experience how this structure comes to be and the interactivity in all these pieces that are cobbled together with great ingenuity, and you have an experience, and I'll give you a little sample of this here to have a sense of these inorganic materials that are made very organic and spontaneous and interact with you, this kind of percussion wall. That when you are outside, you feel like you're hearing wind and nature coming in, and it's so reflective in this kind of grand sweeping way. So as you're interacting with this wall, the piece, you're immersing in it, you're responding to it, it's responding to you, and there's an organicness that's very, very special to it. I want to call out an exceptional exhibition at the Museum of Outdoor Arts now by Lumax, and there it is Dorothy and Mel's Tanner's exhibition there. It's really a superb one to give you an example of how one individual, the evolution of their work, to see their work in this comprehensive way and then to maybe experience it in that space, you really begin to see sort of the parallel playing that is going on both in this city and with the world at large of pieces that go back to the 1960s all the way to the present, that are using all kinds of mediums to express and embody the nature of light and how, in fact, we are moved and shaped by it. The expression that is written here, by the way, as you see there, it says, about behind everything in here in light, and make it into a shape that not only solidifies light, but the life that the light touches. And if you think about it, that expression could work for James Turrell's work, okay? But it's expressed very, very differently in the way that these pieces are embodied. And they were created over the course of many, many, many years, and the evolution of that work is critical to kind of call out here. Just as one piece I'll show you here with Dorothy Tanner and Mark Billard, this is a collaboration, and it's a work that, to me, echoes back to pieces that I've seen and people working, such as at the Center for Advanced Visual Studies at MIT, where I worked for many years with people like Otto Pina and others. And so here you'll have a... So here is an individual who weds music, literature, a whole range of sensibilities. And when you actually see what they do in Lumonics, it's just sort of a merging of luminescence and harmonics, and how they blend it and weave it very differently than the works you'll see, say, during the period of experiments in art and technology in the 60s and 70s and 80s, all the way to the present, and how it is poeticized. It's very powerful. So what I would like to just briefly end on a couple other slides. This was another art installation at the CU Art Museum, in which you go into the heart of the brain. It's about what's literally inside each and every one of us as we are looking at and trying to make sense of the world and how we put our ideas and concepts together. So it's literally about how our emotions and feelings are absolutely influence our decision making and every aspect of the way that we intuitively construct and look at the nature of human creativity. So it's a gigantic piece that was first shown at the Museum of Modern Art in Paris in 1982, and it actually represents seconds of thinking about the integration of art, science, and technology. And that synthesis is something that I want to say something about in the course of our conversations. I won't dwell on it here, but the expression, the moving through and building of objects, constructs that have concepts that are very much informed by science, engineering, technology, business, and other things like this piece that is trying to, over 26 years, try to piece together and figure out how to recreate what the sun does so that we can use it in renewable energy source. And it was part of an installation at the CU Art Museum. And these are other pieces that you're looking at that are 2 billionths of the size of what they're actually imaging. And so these are concepts and things that, as art critics, you go through and you look and you spend time and you try to evaluate them. And also the ideas and things behind them. The entire show was about something that impacts every single one of our lives on global climate change. This is one of the top scientists in the world who